Information determines how we think, and how we think determines what we say, and what we say determines what we do. Where there are no facts, there cannot be truth, and where there is no truth, there cannot be trust, and where there is no trust, there cannot be democracy and peace.
I thought she was talking about her marriage. That's kind of weird. Then suddenly she turned and it's about democracy. That's Hillary Diane Rodham Clinton in Deutschland, in Germany, goose-stepping into that stadium in Munich. She has got an armband on, but we can't see it because it's not on her arm. Ba-dum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, ba-dum, bum. Hillary Diane Rodham Clinton. She's a warmongering. I think she's a war criminal. She should probably be on trial at The Hague. The Hague. That's not named for General Alexander Haig, Secretary Alexander Haig. Hillary Diane in Germany, and Bill is with her there. He heard there'd be chicks. Somebody told Bill there'd be chicks, and today's hump day, of course, so got to keep your eye on Bill. Yes, now, President Trump got on the phone yesterday with Vlad the Impaler from Russia. You know, he's an old communist from the Soviet days, and he really misses the Soviet Union. He wants to reconstitute the Soviet Union, and that makes him a commie pig dog and a killer, and he throws women off of rooftops and has them shot in the elevators of their apartment buildings in Moscow. He's almost as bad as the Democrats, well, as the Clintons anyway. How many people have died around the Clintons under mysterious circumstances? As many as Putin, or more? Probably more. But that's not important now. President Trump was on the phone yesterday with Vlad the Impaler, with Putin, and you'll never guess what they talked about. They talked about the war in Ukraine. Isn't that crazy? And maybe a ceasefire, maybe stopping the war and stopping the fighting in Ukraine, stopping the killing, which is what President Trump has been talking about and what he ran on, and now he's on the phone with Putin yesterday, and the Democrats are very angry with him because they're pro-war. You know, if you count pretty much every war we've ever been in, just look no further than the Democrat Party. But President Trump on the phone with Putin yesterday, and that made Volodymyr Zelensky very envious, is a very envious man. And so President Trump is, even as we speak, on the phone with Volodymyr Zelensky in the Ukraine. And I bet Zelensky started by thanking him. Basic pleasantries being exchanged like we live in civilization or something like that. Remarkable stuff. But President Trump now on the phone with Volodymyr Zelensky because he's very envious and petty, and so is the news media because they're leftists, and we've got that going for us. Now, something else has developed here as well, and the news media is downplaying it, but it turns out there was a prisoner exchange between Russia and Ukraine because of Donald Trump. Not because of Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or the Democrats. And what happened to Barack Obama anyway? Did you see they asked Democrats in a poll earlier this week, who is the leader of the Democrat Party, and who did they vote for? 10%, the biggest share of the vote, went to AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, leader of the Democrat Party. These people shouldn't be allowed to vote, honestly. AOC, 10%. And you get down there, and then they had 4% for Barack Obama as the leader of the party. And with 4%, Barack Obama, leader of the party, and Jasmine Crockett with 4%. The Democrat Party they put Jasmine Crockett and Barack Hussein Obama on equal footing at 4%, and AOC at 10%, and Bernie Sanders, I think, at 8%. These people have mental issues, a lot of gender issues and mental issues. But Amazing stuff. Now, the news media, they're excited 4 minutes ago. Trump, Zelensky speak after Putin call. That's the headline. Yeah, a day after the Putin call. Now, he talks to Zelensky all the time. Then he spoke to Putin and these people with the baby brains, with child brains. Oh, now you've got to talk to Zelensky again because he wants another $100 billion that he can't account for. But he does have a yacht and a house in Sweden, and don't worry about him. Wah, wah, wah. You're a Democrat party. So President Trump on the phone yesterday talking about a ceasefire with Putin, and apparently got something of a temporary partial ceasefire because you're dealing with communists, right? And now we've got, and that's the problem with dealing with the Democrats in the United States, too, is they're so close to being communists, you can't believe a word that they say. But now the Economic Times, Russia, Ukraine exchange 372 POWs in prisoner swap. Russian Defense Ministry. They got a colon in there, too. They got a colon right in the middle because they love their colons. They do. Russia and Ukraine exchange hundreds of POWs each. France 24 has the breaking news, and 372 POWs in prisoner swap. And that is not bad. That's not bad. Also, the Israelis, they're still smacking the terrorist group called Hamas, even though the Democrat Party supports them, because they're not on our side. The Democrat Party, they are not on our side. Whose side are they on? Well, they're on the side of the Democrat Party, but that's about it. Benjamin Netanyahu, the brave, he's a former commando. His brother was a commando. His brother was killed by radical Islamic jihadi terrorists during the raid on Entebbe. And Netanyahu would still beat up any Democrat in the prime of his life. Netanyahu would still just whoop him like nobody's business. But Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of the great state of Israel, which represents civilization on the edge of Indian territory, the Middle East, and Benjamin Netanyahu, he's being attacked by the Democrats because he bombed terrorists, the terrorists of Hamas, in Gaza. And the news media, they couldn't be more riled up about this. The lead story in the Washington Post today, front page, A-sectional. Not the metro-sectional, but the A-sectional. And their lead story, 400 die as Israel breaks ceasefire. I'm sorry, they're holding hostages, and we were playing that audio yesterday. They are a terrorist group, a genocidal, racist group, and they're holding, what is the number now, 67 hostages? And the news media, they're completely out of their ever-loving minds, and they take the Democrats, the Washington Post and beyond, they take all their information from Hamas, a bloodthirsty gang of jackals and ghouls who are like raping the dead bodies of the hostages that they still hold in the underground tunnels. And if you should go kill them, then the Washington Post is against you. They're with Hamas. They're with Tren de Aragua. They're with MS-13. They're with the Sinaloa cartel. They're with Putin. They're with the bad guys everywhere. President Trump is putting a whooping on the Houthis in Yemen, such a nice country. And the Democrats, they're with the Houthis because of Trump derangement syndrome in large part. But the Washington Post very upset today. Israel pummeled the Gaza Strip with airstrikes Tuesday, killing more than 400 people, injuring hundreds more, and shattering a 2-month-old ceasefire that for a time brought both a measure of calm to the war-battered enclave, it's an enclave, and the release of nearly 36 Israeli hostages held captive by Hamas and other Palestinian militants. They call them militants. They're radical Islamic jihadi terrorists drenched in the blood of innocents. and the Democrat Party is with them. The ongoing air and artillery assault killed at least 404 people and injured nearly 600, according to Gaza's health ministry. When they say Gaza's health ministry, they buried this deep in the story in the Washington Post. That means, so Hamas says. The terrorist group is telling the Washington Post what to print, and the Washington Post prints it because they're not on the side of civilization. They're the left. So they take their guidance and their information from an anonymous terrorist, and they just publish it, which does not distinguish between civilians and combatants, the Gaza Health Ministry. The daily toll was one of the war's highest. Yeah, sure it was. How about October 7th? What was the toll there? You troglodytes. Burn in, Democrat land. Amazing stuff. So one of the war's highest, and the United Nations Children's Fund said in a statement they've been helping Hamas the whole time, that more than 130 children had been killed, quote, representing one of the largest single-day child death tolls in the last year. Well, maybe they should release the hostages that they kidnapped and they've been raping and torturing and murdering. Just saying. But the Washington Post, they're in bed with Hamas because they call themselves liberals. And then the UN, who they've been helping Hamas the whole time, we're supposed to take them at their word, and it's 130 children. How does that compare to the business Planned Parenthood's going to do today in the United States? What is 1 million divided by 365? Because the Democrats, they're harvesting the organs, Before Tuesday's strikes, the Gaza Health Ministry had reported that more than 48,577 people in Gaza had been killed. Now, why would you say more than when you use a number like 48,577? Or like 0.3? What is that? Is that a math trick of some kind? Amazing stuff. Since the war began, October 7th, 2023, when Hamas and allied fighters, that'd be terrorists, ghouls, from Gaza streamed into southern Israel and killed around 1,200 people, mostly civilians, and took about 250 people hostage. That's the Washington Post. That's what they're reporting today. Notice how just general numbers with the Israelis. Screw them. About 1,200, whatever. Some number kidnapped. But the Hamas people have very specific numbers, and the Washington Post goes with those as though these are coming from the burning bush. Amazing stuff. And they say the Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Yunis said that the hospital there had been inundated with wounded civilians. They're always civilians. They're never anything but civilians. Mostly children. That's what they say. Some women and a smattering of men. Yeah, because the Israelis have developed bombs that only kill women and children. That's the terrorists of Hamas. They're the good guys in the story, aren't they? The strike killed 8 members of his family, among them 4 children. This is the Washington Post. They're a front group for Hamas, not on the side of civilization. You know why? They're the left. They call themselves liberals, but they're not. Womp, womp. You know, I know, the American people know that this country was built on hard work. And whether you stand long hours every day, you run errands, chase the kids around, just doing your part to keep the world turning on its axis, you shouldn't have to deal with fatigue and foot pain and ankle pain. No, sir. And that's where G-Defy shoes come in. G-Defy shoes built with patented VersaShock technology. The Federal Trade Commission has authorized G-Defy shoes to tell all of us that these shoes help to relieve minor occasional pain associated with walking, running, and prolonged periods of standing. G-Defy shoes help to absorb harmful shock. They align your body, improve your biomechanics, and return energy with every step you take. Now, my best girl and I, we both got pairs of G-Defy shoes. They're great. Make your arches feel better after a hike than they felt before the hike. And right now, you get 50% off your order of $120 or more by texting Chris, that's me, to 91888 or by heading to Al Gore's Amazing Internet to gdefy.com. Use the code Chris at CHRIS. That's the normal spelling. That's the code Chris at 91888 or at Al Gore's Amazing Internet, gdefy.com. With gdefy's 60-day risk-free trial, you've got nothing to lose. Message and data rates may apply. Yeah, the Washington Post, the Democrats. They're really not very democratic at all, are they? All right, back to President Trump and the judges. That's coming up. And the Democrats terrorizing the Jews in New York again. Their Palestinian flags and their keffiyehs. They like to call them keffiyehs. They dress like terrorists, and then they terrorize the Jews. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. All right, then. Hey, look at the clock. Let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Jim, calling from the Commonwealth of Virginia. Jimmy, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hi, Chris. First time I've been able to get through to you, but I met you at the years ago at the WMAL Town Hall back in 2010.
Excellent.
We were just getting started. Had a nice visit with you then. Yeah, I had an aspect of this astronaut return that we had to rely on Elon Musk. He did what our enfeebled government and old Joe couldn't get done. This has really been going back 15 years, if you recall, when it seems like I've always been of the opinion that Barack Obama kind of gutted our NASA programs. At one point, I heard a report he wanted to turn them into a Muslim recruiting operation. And we haven't brought back any of our astronauts since, I don't think. And then, if you recall, between 8 and 15 years ago, who did we rely on to bring back our people from the space station?
The Russians. The Russians.
And Putin. And after Hillary and Biden, and made Putin such an enemy, I noticed he hasn't brought back any of our astronauts. So they really were stranded up there this last year. And the great Elon Musk was able to do what we can't even do anymore ourselves. and we seem to have made an enemy of our last rescuer. I just thought that's been on my mind for several years, noteworthy. I've never heard anyone comment on that the Russians kind of stopped rescuing our astronauts.
It's a very interesting point, I've got to say, because you're right. The Barack Obama, not on our side, never a fan of the United States, mentored by communist named Frank Marshall Davis, made a Communist Party voter, John Penitentiary Face Brennan, the CIA director, and then the CIA director and the CIA corrupted our 2020 election with their fake felonious 51 letter. But you're right. The Russians used to bring us back, and then the Democrats botched that. Now, I was just reading from this ridiculous Washington Post story on they take all their information from Hamas, and then, 1,200 or some number of Jews were massacred, and the violent mob in the streets of New York again yesterday, the anti-Semites, genocidal anti-Semites supporting Hamas and Hezbollah. And if you're a Hezbollah booster and the Trump administration wants to deport you, you're a college professor in New York, the Democrats are all in every time with the jihadis, and if they love Hezbollah, and their college professors will influence the next generation of American youths, then the Democrats are in favor of Hamas, and they're in favor of Hezbollah, and they hate the Jews. Even their Jews hate the Jews. It's a funny political party. And 400 die as Israel breaks ceasefire. I'm sorry. Doesn't Hamas break the ceasefire every day by holding the hostages in the tunnels, including dead bodies of hostages that they murdered? Just curious. But Benjamin Netanyahu was having none of it, and he's kind of a no bourgeois kind of guy, And he spoke up about all this. You're bombing the terrorists. And I was pinging back and forth with Seton Motley today and say, when you bomb a terrorist groups don't have uniformed militaries. They're terrorist groups. So when you kill members of terrorist groups, you're killing civilians. I'm making quotation marks with my fingers because they did elect Hamas in Gaza to be their elected political leadership. But who's their military branch? Well, they're all kind of, 8 hours a day, and then they're civilians. So when you drop bombs on them, they claim that everybody's a civilian because they don't have a uniformed military. It's a terrorist organization, for crying out loud. But the 400 die, and the news media like, oh, no, the poor terrorists, they're being beaten by the forces of civilization, which, that Israel is superior to the so-called Palestinians and Hamas in every measurable way, and in particular at military terms. But they're savage butchers and murderers and things. So 400 die as Israel breaks ceasefire. Benjamin Netanyahu having none of it.
Hamas refused offer after offer to release our hostages. In the past 2 weeks, Israel did not initiate any military action in the hope that Hamas would change course. Well, that didn't happen. Israel does not target Palestinian civilians. We target Hamas terrorists. We will bring our people home and we will destroy Hamas.
What's a civilian in this context? If you got 4 guys in a pickup truck with rifles and they're in civilian clothes, what are they? Are they civilians because of their clothes? Or are they combatants because of their AK-47s? To the Washington Post, they're all civilian and usually children. They're, like Mahmoud Khalil. He's a student. He's 30 years old. 30. Not 3 years old. 30 years old. But the Democrats, you know how they are. We were talking, it was our last brilliant caller, Jim, talking about Obama and NASA and what he did to NASA. And I know some people are scratching their heads saying, what is he talking about? Obama making the space program into some kind of a Muslim thing. Well, you may not remember. It would be easy because the news media didn't talk about it very much. But the Wall Street Journal reported way back when Barack Obama was president of the United States, and it was July 6th of 2010, Obama tasks NASA chief with Muslim relations. What? President Barack Obama wants NASA chief Charles Bolden to engage Muslim nations. That's the whole first sentence. Well, but why? Mr. Bolden has repeatedly said future trips to Mars, see Elon Musk, and elsewhere won't be possible without extensive international cooperation. That was a flagrant, ridiculous, un-American, anti-American pack of idiocy by Barack Obama, whose middle name is Hussein, and he was never on our side. Charles Bolden, the then NASA chief under Barack Obama.
Perhaps foremost, he wanted me to find a way to reach out to the Muslim world and engage much more with dominantly Muslim nations to help them feel good about their historic contribution to science and engineering, science, math, and engineering.
Yeah. For example, the suicide vest, which was a pretty good advancement, I think that was, and IEDs. They did with scientific precision, a lot of improvised explosive devices and suicide vests, and they blow up so soon. I went and found another story from July 12th of 2010. White House corrects NASA chief on Muslim comment. White House spokesman Robert Gibbs, remember him, said on Monday NASA Administrator Charles Bolden was wrong to say that reaching out to the Muslim world was a top priority for the U.S. Space Agency. That's just what Obama told him, but go ahead and ignore that. So when you're a Democrat, you can just say, oh, no, we didn't say that. We said something completely different. Ignore everything that we said a minute ago. Bolden raised eyebrows in the space community. A lot of Democrats in the space community. And outrage among conservative pundits, but not liberals, by telling Al Jazeera television recently President Barack Obama had instructed him to work for better outreach with the Muslim world. What do they call it, the Muslim world, anyway? We have, like, the Baha'i world. We have the Christian world. It's not a different world, but when it comes to the Muslim world, it's a different world. And Obama told him his top priority is to find a way to reach out to the Muslim world and engage much more with dominantly Muslim nations. I think you mean predominantly, don't you? But he did say dominantly. Predominantly Muslim nations to help them feel good about their historic contributions to science, math, and engineering. That's what he said. That is what he said. But then the White House, and he's a black guy, Bolden, and so the White House said, no, he was all wrong about that. He didn't know what he was talking about. He's a nitwit. Don't believe anything that he says. I'm telling you. Yes, sir. Democrats, something terribly wrong with them. Also, the Washington Post, in their Today edition, partial halt to fighting in Ukraine takes shape. Well, that didn't happen under Joe Biden, did it? And the Democrats don't want peace. In fact, Hillary Clinton, again, in Germany, is that today or yesterday? Today in Germany, right? Hillary Clinton saying this absolutely crazy stuff. Putin agrees to 30-day pause on energy targets after talking with Trump. And then Trump on the phone with Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine today. And he's working towards stopping the war and bringing peace. So what does Hillary Clinton say about Trump and Republicans and what's going on in the United States of America? She, of course, attacks.
There's no way to sugarcoat it.
Okay.
Autocracy is on the march, and we now have a government in the United States that has thrown in its lot with the autocrats, which has made a choice to support those who wage war, not peace.
Yeah, right, who wage war, not peace. President Trump is working to bring peace. President Trump brought a ceasefire to Israel and Gaza. President Trump, now on the front page of the Washington Post, has a partial halt to fighting in Ukraine. Putin agrees to a 30-day pause on energy targets, keep the lights on and all that, after talking with Trump. And Hillary Clinton is pitching the opposite of the truth because she's a psychopath who still believes that the election was stolen from her in 2016. You remember that because she said that she had the best campaign, which she didn't. She had the best this. She had the best candidate. But the election was stolen from her in 2016. That's what Hillary said because she lies about everything all the time. And now she's in Germany laying out this lunacy.
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee. And you can have the election stolen from you.
I love the fact that they applaud and cheer. Yep. Wow. Pretty amazing stuff. You're a Democrat party. Man, oh, man. Also, this is a big deal. This is front page above the fold, Washington Post today. Chief Justice rebukes Trump's targeting of judges. Well, he didn't target judges, although he was targeted by a Democrat on a suicide mission to assassinate Trump. I remember that. And he was targeted by another Democrat who was arrested after being spotted with his rifle along the fence line at Trump Golf Course in Florida. Targeted. I remember Brett Kavanaugh and two other Supreme Court justices being targeted by a Democrat with a gun that showed up at Brett Kavanaugh's house. I remember that. I remember Congressman Steve Scalise being shot and nearly killed by a Bernie Sanders campaign volunteer, kind of like Martin Luther King was shot and killed by a George Wallace campaign volunteer, Democrat candidate for president, by the way. Chief Justice rebukes Trump targeting of judges. He's not targeted judge, but judges are targeting him. Now 127 judge rulings against Trump, trying to stop Trump. For example, court hits brakes on teardown of USAID because the President of the United States doesn't have any power when judges jump in, and all the Democrats applaud like they do, when Hillary says she had the election stolen from her, they all applaud. Man, oh man. Very upsetting people. President Donald Trump called Tuesday for the impeachment of a federal judge who had ruled against him, prompting the Chief Justice of the United States to issue a stern statement rejecting the idea that asserting the independence of the judiciary the Trump administration has forcefully pushed back against U.S. District Judge James E. Boasberg. They don't mention that he's an Obama appointee, who ordered the White House not to use controversial wartime authority to deport alleged Venezuelan gang members while litigation over the matter proceeds. Are we litigating whether they're in the country illegally or not? No, we're not. The Democrats want to be their defense attorneys and say, well, you got to take them to court and prove that they're members of Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan gang. The tattoos all over their backs and arms are a pretty good indication of all that. But the Washington Post wants more Americans murdered. Impeachment of judges is extremely rare, and it is very unlikely that an effort to remove Bozeman would gain the required majorities in a closely divided Congress. But the White House sees the fight against a judge appointed to the bench by presidents of both parties. And it's true, I've talked about this Bozeman guy before. He was initially appointed to the bench by George W. Bush. And that might have something to do with the fact that Bozeman went to law school at Yale and was a member of the secret society Skull and Bones, and that George W. Bush, Yale, member of Skull and Bones, secret society, and you're supposed to look out for your Skull and Bones brethren. And it's true that W. Bush, who put a lot of Democrats in a lot of positions because, he wasn't a fighter like Trump. And I'm not a big W. Bush basher necessarily, but he's not a fighter like Trump. And Trump has decided it's time that we fight a lot of these fights. And I'm with Trump on fighting the fight. And I thought maybe the statement by President Trump about impeaching Judge Bozeman, I thought, well, that's probably not going to go anywhere. But he's picking the fight. And I'm for picking the fight. I am for picking the fight, no doubt about it. And then, strangely, quite a peculiar move, I thought, by the Chief Justice of the United States, by Justice John Roberts, lashing out at Trump. I thought that was kind of wacky, I've got to say. But the Washington Post, very upset about this. So that the White House sees the fight against the judge appointed to the bench by presidents of both parties. And then he was promoted by Barack Obama. And the judgeship that he holds now was by Barack Obama. And W. Bush may not have had a political litmus test, but I can assure you Barack Obama had a political litmus test. No doubt about it. But the White House sees this as a winning strategy, part of a years-long effort by Trump to use immigration to his political advantage. No, it's about securing our borders and restoring sovereignty to the United States and kicking criminal gang members out of the country in large numbers. And the Democrats are fighting, and that includes the Washington Post, fighting to keep them in place. They want more gang members in the United States. Now, Mark Levin has spoken about this, the great one, and he knows whereof he speaks when it comes to matters of the Supreme Court and federal courts and the judiciary and law and order and the Constitution. Mark Levin knows a thing or two about all of that. And Mark Levin went off last night on his radio program. I expect he will again tonight. And also posted on X, Twitter, extensively about this and eloquently, as always, Mark Levin did, on the inappropriateness of Chief Justice John Roberts weighing in on this and suggesting maybe the Chief Justice should defend the Constitution and not just members of the judiciary, and shouldn't put himself in the middle of a political fight between the White House and an Obama-appointed judge. I've got to say, and I dug into what Mark Levin has been saying, and Mark Levin's always right on these matters. He's the great one, after all, and he's right about this. But President Trump is right to pick the fight. Let's have this argument. We're supposed to be a marketplace of ideas, and it's time that we started calling these judges on their political activities. President Trump is right to pick the fight. Mark Levin is right on his Twitter account, laying it all out very, very eloquently. And it's right that President Trump engage with the enemies of the Constitution and call them on the carpet, hold them to account. Good thing, good fight to pick. Now, my advice to President Trump on the courts is do what Joe Biden did, because it will reveal the corruptness of the Democrat media, and just completely ignore the courts. Joe Biden, remember Joe Biden ignored the Supreme Court when the Supreme Court ruled that he couldn't take $144 billion and pay off student loans, and he said, screw that. I'm going to do it anyway. And he completely ignored the Supreme Court. And the media applauded. They thought it was great. So President Trump should defy the courts, do what he wants, and let the media defend whatever. Also, I wanted to get on this. Our friend Dan Bongino was sworn in as deputy director of the FBI yesterday. And the New York Times is very upset about this, very angry. The New York Times headline, with the arrival of Bongino, Trump loyalists take command at the FBI. We were reminded of Eric Holder under Barack Obama.
I'm happy. I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. There's still work to be done. I'm still a president's wingman, so I'm there with my boy.
That's right. I'm still the president's wingman, so I'm there with my boy, the Attorney General, Eric H. Holder, Jr., as the New York Times insists on calling him. But now the New York Times says, with the arrival of Bongino, Trump loyalists take command at FBI. It was great when Obama loyalists were in charge at the Justice Department and the FBI. That was just wonderful. They applauded that, but now they're very upset.